All right. Thank you, KITA organization, for inviting me to come here to South Korea, and I would like to share my ideas and insights regarding entrepreneurship in Germany and the role of the state with you for the next 20 minutes. So you're well aware that Europe is in a difficult situation right now. Still, the German model of management seems to work, and you could argue that entrepreneurship plays a role here. But besides, there's also other factors that might need to be mentioned, like small and medium-sized companies, family firms, and, of course, the role of the state. It is not long ago that, around the year 2000, that Germany was itself in a very bad economic situation. The Economist said or labeled Germany as a sick man of Europe, but over the past, I would say, 15 years, a lot of things have changed. Economic reforms have taken place. But it was not only reforms designed by the state. Instead, it was a lot of entrepreneurship, a lot of activity by the small and medium-sized companies that ultimately played a very role. So I would like to dive a little deeper into the structure of our economy and find out what are peculiarities or what were interesting elements that could contribute to entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial behavior. Now, when you look at the size distribution of our economy, you see that 80% of our businesses are small. They have less than 10 employees, and roughly 19% of the companies are actually between 10 and 500 employees large. And it's only a very small fraction of companies that really outgrows this threshold of 500 employees. There are only 500 companies in Germany that are actually listed on the stock market, which might surprise you. So the rest of the large companies are actually family-owned by private owners, closely controlled by families. But this group of companies that are considered small and medium-sized, they are actually very important, right? They are numerous, so they constitute a large number of businesses. They employ 70% of the people, and they provide 80% of the apprenticeships. They pay taxes and make a lot of revenues. So they are important, and I would like to dive a little bit deeper into the role of SMEs in terms of providing apprenticeship positions, especially for young people. Now I got here the evolution of unemployment rate among young people below the age of 25. And you see that in Germany, which is the lower line, this number is declining, and it's now down at 7%. While in Europe, in total, this number has been rising up to 25%. So you could argue easily that it is, in fact, these small and medium-sized businesses that provide these kind of opportunities for young people that allow the young people to make professional experience, and hopefully this will be converted then in long-term employment positions, which is actually the case. So what is the current economic situation in Germany? Now, and I'm showing you now here a graph which is a business climate index that starts around the year 2006. And it's going down in 2007, 8, and 9. It's going up again. Now, this is what the economic crisis did to us. So it hurt the economy severely, but after that, the economy as a whole grew steadily on a small level, but it allowed the companies to become very profitable, to make their homework, to rethink their strategies, and then it allowed the companies, also small and medium-sized companies, to grow. This has been the case until today, and we are now in a situation that there's actually no sector that is actually hurt or in a bad shape. So basically all parts of the economy are growing, and this helps, of course, also small and medium-sized companies. Now, this development is helped by the fact that there's a financing situation for all kinds of companies, small, medium-sized, and large companies, that is very favorable. So the interest rates are low, and as a company you can lend money in Germany for 1 or 2%. So the banks are desperate to find people that actually take their money, which is wonderful for the small and medium-sized companies, but it's also, in theory, wonderful for entrepreneurship. But what is happening, and that is kind of surprising, so the companies are actually in such good shape that they don't need the money from the banks to a large degree. They are self-financed, they are profitable, they have made their homeworks, and so the rate of outside capital or bank loans is just 30%. Alternative mechanisms of finance are virtually unknown. What are the companies doing with this kind of money they earn? They invest. They invest in rationalization, they invest in expansion, and they invest into R&D. But what we observe here, and this is a matter of concern, I would say, is that the small and medium-sized companies are investing relatively low margins of their revenues into innovation. So the gap between large companies and small companies is kind of widening, and there is too little risk taking on the side of the companies to be observed. There might be also too little risk-taking on the side of the banks to be observed when they are reluctant to invest into risky projects. However, there is a small group of companies, which are sometimes called hidden champions. They are willing to invest much higher sums into R&D and thereby contribute to progress, technological progress, and behave rather entrepreneurially. The state of Germany has developed over time a set of features and instruments in order to push entrepreneurship and in order to help SMEs. And I have drawn you a map, which I don't want to go into, but you see on the European level, on the national level, on the level of each state, and even on the municipality level, there are some support functions. There are banks that are lending money to on preferable rates to startups, and there are guarantee banks, etc. There's also some semi-governmental structures like Chamber of Commerce and Chamber of Craftsmanship that help entrepreneurs to get started. But at the end of the day, and I think this is very telling, at the end of the day it is the entrepreneur himself, or the Unternehmer, as we say, who is ultimately responsible. So these functions, support functions, they have just the function of helping the companies to sail in a bay for a limited amount of time, but then they have to go out and they have to make their own decisions, and they have to make their fortune for themselves. And I think so. Market mechanisms are still at work. The state is there to define the rules of the game and make sure that there's no illegal behavior to be observed. But that's it. It is ultimately the entrepreneur who matters. But now we face an important challenge. What you see here is the evolution of startup activity in Germany over the past 10 years. And this has been slowing down considerably. There are several reasons for that. On the one hand side, early on in the 2000s and also in the 1990s, we had special developments due to the unification of Germany, due to the enlargement of the European Union. And a lot of these special effects are not there anymore. So it's the natural rate of the employment that you actually observe. And this is driven by demographic changes. So we are now approaching age cohorts that are kind of shrinking. And so if there's only a limited amount of or rate of people moving into entrepreneurship, then naturally the absolute number of startups has to decline. But there's a second problem that you can see here, which is the very good economic situation. So we have very low levels of unemployment, sometimes 0% in the southern region of Germany. The companies are paying extremely high wages. And for a society which is risk averse, this poses a problem. So there is no longer this necessity entrepreneurship or this push entrepreneurship that works. So we kind of in a situation where things are going too good, right, to observe risky behavior. There's just one group that is actually behaving risky or risk-prone, which is migrant entrepreneurs. We have a very high number of migrant entrepreneurs into Germany, and today it is approaching, as I will show you in the next slide, almost 50% of the entrepreneurship activity that takes place in Germany is done by migrant entrepreneurs. And they dominate a lot of industries like construction industry, service industry, restaurant business. So many areas, social services, where actually this group is heavily needed. There's another group of entrepreneurs that is on the rise, which is female entrepreneurs. But these two groups do not suffice to turn the downward trend in entrepreneurship that can be observed. There might be on a higher level some different movements taking place. So if you take the example of high-tech entrepreneurship, this is something which is kind of attractive at the moment. It is concentrated in the cities, the large cities, in the cultural hotspots in Germany, like in Munich, in Berlin, in Frankfurt, Düsseldorf, Cologne. This is where you observe these kind of high-tech digital entrepreneurship. And this is certainly very interesting and needs to be observed. It also needs to be cultivated. So this is something that can be helped by the municipality or by the state, but it cannot be prescribed. So you need to be fortunate to some degree. Entrepreneurship also can be seen, I think, in the international entrepreneurship. And this is an area where traditionally Germany has been pretty successful. So our German SMEs are going international and going abroad. They follow very often the large companies, and I'm pretty sure that also entrepreneurs will develop international business models very quickly, given that they have these good role models. Just to put this into perspective, Germany, with China and US, has been historically been the three leading nations in this field of exporting. Now, if you take absolute terms, if you divide this by the number of inhabitants using the per capita exports, you see that German companies historically have been strong in this area, and so I think this will be also a region where we want to build on, and where, again, entrepreneurial skills, abilities and talents are certainly very helpful. entrepreneurship is about risk-taking, but it's not only about exporting, it's about really establishing yourself in the outside world. So it's also talking about direct investments. But again, the recent history has shown that, at least for speaking for Germany, that this has been a policy or a strategy that a lot of companies have taken. This secures also towards risks that might be on the rise. For instance, in America, we see a surge in direct investments in America from German companies. This is certainly not because they just love this place, but it's seen as a necessity in those days. So I think for the last point I want to make, entrepreneurship, from my personal point of view, means adaptiveness, right? To being able to learn, to react to situations that are new. Basically, this is something that every company is confronted with, small, medium, large size. It's an attitude, habit. And one of the kinds of learnings that you have to make is to improve incrementally what you're actually doing or currently doing. So I was looking at management innovations and how they are applied among small and medium-sized companies, and you see that, in fact, many of these management innovations, they are used quite often among the German companies, small and medium-sized, and they focus on quality, focus on efficiency, and focus on customer orientation. Now, to summarize, and I have chosen to change my summary from this slide that I have handed out to you in your document. I think, and reflecting on what I said, I think Germany is not an entrepreneurial state in the original form that you say. Entrepreneurship plays in itself a very important role. But still it is well-performing. What makes it, I think, well-performing is that companies in Germany, they work very well together in value networks, having long-standing relations, but these relations are non-exclusive, they are trustful, and they allow every actor in this network to grow. Our institutions, and this might be unfortunate, tend to favor risk-averse activities and support low levels of risk-taking. This is due to the fact, I think, that we are very strongly bank-financed. There is no venture capital market in Germany that is noticeable at the moment, and I think it's very difficult for it to rise. The lawmaker, but also customers and suppliers, tend to favor incremental innovation, tend to favor small bets and taking little risk. And this is, I think, hindering entrepreneurial state that is able to come up with disruptive innovation. So in order for a state really to become entrepreneurial, I think you have to recalibrate exploration and exploitation, meaning that you have to put more emphasis on exploring new things, allowing failure, allowing a risk-taking culture, and learning quickly from failure. And then, in the later stage, also to be able to explore and exploit. So the idea of the revenue model, not only the value creation model, but really the revenue model, is something that is very difficult to understand, at least I think for the German mind, in this new kind of economy that we are currently seeing. Just coming back from the Silicon Valley, where I spent 6 months at Stanford, I'm just amazed to see how professional, how greedy, how competitive these people are. All these components, I think they are very important if you really want to go towards the direction of the entrepreneurial state, but you have to ask yourself, does my economy, does my my identity fit to this kind of pure entrepreneurial behavior? What you should do is you should put in place an entrepreneurship ecosystem. And ecosystem does not mean that the state has to come in and do anything or everything. It is rather that you have to invest into formal and informal networks, into a creative atmosphere, into a competitive spirit, and into a pay-forward mentality. These components, which are all soft components, they need to be in place in order to come up with an entrepreneurship system that is able to come up with radical new ideas that allow for great companies to arise. You may start as early as reforming the educational system, which is able to inspire the young generation of people, that helps them to become creative and to be risk takers for themselves. This is what I experienced when I was putting my kids to school in the Silicon Valley schools. At this early age, they would foster innovative thinking, creativity, and they would actually challenge you if you are not thinking outside of the box or different enough. Yeah, so there's a very different approach to the German approach. So the state, and this is my final remark, he's there to guarantee the rules of the game, to provide a well-functioning infrastructure, and allow things to happen, right? Not to be the first to say, okay, this does not work, but really to allow also risk-taking. He could do so by incentivizing entrepreneurship behavior, by lowering tax rates, by giving out or helping a venture capital market to arise. So there are things that you should do as the state, but you shouldn't interfere with entrepreneurial behavior. Thank you very much.
네, 보이보데 교수님 아주 클리어하고 그리고 독일 잘 읽어서 감사하고요. 간략하게 요약해서 말씀을 드리면 독일이 한때 유럽의 환자였다가 그것이 반전되어서 유럽의 경이로운 국가가 된 비결은 중소기업에 있다 하는 말씀하셨습니다. 그리고 이런 것을 만든 여러 가지 이유가 있지만 그 중에서도 독일 기업의 국제화, 특히 한국보다도 1인당 수출액이 2배다 하는 것은 독일의 중소기업이 처음부터 이 국제적 시각에서 기업 활동하고 있다는 것을 보여주는 사례로 보입니다. 그리고 마지막에 그 슬라이드에서 강조하신 것은 정부의 칼 중에서 게임의 규칙을 정하고 그리고 기업 가족 행동을 장려해야 한다 하는 말씀하신 것으로 기억됩니다. 그래서 국가가 할 역할은 규칙을 정했으면 공정하게 집행하고 하지만 또 기업의 활동을 장려하지만 반기업적 활동이라든지 혹은 비생산적 활동은 국가가 인센티브나 다른 제도를 통해서 제어해야 한다 하는 말씀을 하신 것으로 기억됩니다.